barnyards, and then the doctors check the women when they're ready to be fertile. They put them in pens together, and then they send the males and females to different camps, and the babies are taken as if eggs from a hen and are totally programmed by the state. And reportedly, a lot of these North Koreans can hardly talk now. And that's kind of what was done to black people in this country when they were slaves. They would keep the males out in pens. There's manuals on this, and you would never let them really learn any reading or writing. If they ever used too good an English, that was uppity, and they were beaten, generally. There was different variants of the way slaves were kept. I've actually studied it. There was some areas where it was more like a mafia, and you had slave owners who actually had huge posses of blacks that were basically like their family, and were all armed, and with actually some rebellions in Alabama that I read about. I'd heard about this, and I looked it up, where there were big plantation owners that began to arm their slaves, and just basically turned it into like big gangs. So there was also a gang form of slavery where everybody was basically a house slave, and it really wasn't even slavery. It was more of like large gangs. But then people would get really upset about that. It was only, 1.5% of Southerners actually had slaves. So it was also an elitist thing used to leverage out the rest of the economy. And that's why slavery was already pretty much dead when the Civil War came. But I'm now digressing, and I said I'd go to calls, another history lesson here. Punished for not crying, thousands of North Koreans face labor camps for not being upset enough about death of Kim Jong-il. Their hardline regime is punishing those who do not cry at the death of the dictator Kim Jong-il. According to reports, sentences of at least 6 months in labor camps are apparently being given to those who did not go to the organized morning events. Fidel Castro makes our news is always, look at people love Castro. They're out there in the millions. Yeah, you get your monthly dole of money you got to live on cut if you don't go to it. And if you talk bad, you go to a labor camp. Of course, I've been told by people that want to set up, these new utopian systems that I would have to be re-educated since I didn't want to go along with it. While anyone who criticized the new leader, Kim Jong-un, is also being punished. Those who tried to leave the country or even made a mobile phone call out were also being disciplined, it has been claimed. Oh, yes. And we've got all of the crying. It's just so wonderful to worship and cry and to march in phalanxes, like zombies, to engage in the worship fest. Truly, truly disgusting. Oh, here's what I mentioned. Big public service announcement. This is in a whole bunch of different publications right now. Daily Mail has it. Reuters has it. Chemical found in deodorants, face cream, and food products is discovered in tumors of all breast cancer patients. And it's not just the bisphenol A, but the parabens that's in most of your soap, everything. I keep telling my wife this. I'm like, honey, they put all this in here on purpose. They pick these. And we've got all the quotes of the science czar and going back into the 20s when they were discovering all this. I mean, hundreds of quotes. We're going to do a new report on it later in the week or next week on all this. And they know exactly what they're doing. Okay? So, but regardless, let's just get it out. Parabens are a chemical compound found in everyday toiletry products. The fact that parabens were present in so many of the breast tissue samples does justify further investigation, say study leaders. A chemically widely used as preservatives in cosmetics, food products, and pharmaceuticals has been found in tissue samples from 40 women with breast cancer. A number of studies since 98 have raised concerns about the potential role of parabens in breast cancer as they possess estrogenic properties. Again, that's why they're put in there. It is known to play a central role in the development, growth, and progression of breast cancer. Parabens are a chemical compound found in everyday toiletry products, including moisturizers, makeup, shaving foam, tanning lotions, and toothpaste. Again, almost all the chemists were eugenicists and hired to do this. It's all a sickening joke. And how many quotes do I have to show you where they say, we're going to put it in everything where you can't escape it, the printer ink, the food. And yes, it's hard to get away from this, but it's worth it. Man, I do not want my wife getting breast cancer. I mean, I want her to live, and I don't want God's creations being hurt. I mean, this is just out of control, folks, and I've got daughters, and it upsets me. And it hurts men's organs as well, where these estrogen mimickers tend to precipitate out. The testicles, the breast tissue. Men are growing breast everywhere, even if they're skinny. It lowers your testosterone level. It feminizes. It changes other endocrines and hormones, and it affects the prostate. And all these cancers are skyrocketing. Let's go to calls here. Carl in Oregon, thank you for holding, sir.
Alex, my best friend and America's best friend, the Paul Revere of the 21st century. How are you, brother?
I'm okay, man. How are you doing?
Freezing, but I'm up here in the Northwest. But yeah, we're having a strangely dry year. It's probably all those chemtrails that we're having shooting across the sky.
Well, they are manipulating the weather. They say they are. They're quote geoengineering, but they won't tell us what they're doing. That's classified.
Exactly. Now, another thing that's going across the sky, the roars and the thunders from the last couple of 3 weeks here, on and off, they're sending them over the Northwest here. The F-18s, F-16s, whatever, Navy SEALs or Air Force fighter jets are flying over early in the morning for the past couple of weeks.
There is a lot of military movement going on the last 6 months. I've seen a lot of tanks on 18-wheelers, a lot of armored vehicles, a lot of helicopters going south. They are, family being sent to Kuwait. I mean, I've been told by military people across the board, they've been told it is going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but when there's a really good possibility it is, they tell them it's going to happen. And they're told the U.S. is going to back Israel up in a strike on Iran. They believe Iran is going to strike back when attacked, and Iran's saying they are now. They're already being attacked, and so it's hurtling towards craziness, my friend.
Well, I believe it. Seeing is believing, Alex. That's one of the best things there. NDA bill. How can a citizen go in and find out access and how to Google it, perhaps, to be able to see the articles in the NDAA bill? No, I hear you. That's a good question. I appreciate your call. The ACLU, Ron Paul, Infowars.com. I mean, the Drudge Report probably linked to 3 articles 2 or 3 weeks ago that we wrote that had links to the Library of Congress, thomas.loc.gov. And then would show the section saying this doesn't affect citizens. But then look at this section. It says, but it does if the president wants it to and you have no rights. And so I don't have those sections in front of me, but we've covered them ad nauseum. And again, that's how lawyers write these contracts. A contract may say one thing, but unless prescribed. And then you go to that other section and it tells you the key provision. And so, I mean, I could play the clips of the senators saying it affects citizens. It's a worldwide battlefield, declares global war, lets the president bypass Congress, gets rid of posse comitatus to put military on the streets of America. And the biggest issue is it allows the secret arrest of citizens and disappearing into a black hole. And then it's got some gravy, bestiality, that's kind of the cherry on top. So that's kind of the side dish of just weirdness that the military can fornicate with barnyard animals or whatever they want, I guess. I can't. Alexon in Oregon, you're on the air.
Alex, it's Alexion.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man, long-time follower, just recently subscribed. Hey, man, I cried with you on your rebroadcast Christmas morning, dude. I'm unemployed for 2.5 years now. I can't get a job to save my life. You inspired me this morning. You said it takes a man to get involved, to educate himself, to, pass it on to others, to get stuff rolling. Well, that's where I'm at. I can hear it in your voice. That's where you're at. You're a big inspiration. Keep in there. I hear it in your voice every day, but, man, you're making a big impact. And last caller, yeah, there are a lot of flights flying out of Oregon here. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, Willamette Valley, and I see jets every morning. I don't know what they're doing, but stuff is different. I'll make this Ricky-ticky. I know time's short. Jesse Ventura, please get involved. Run with Ron Paul. We need you. We need you, Uncle. We need people like you, Alex. And you're right. It's on. Before I let you go, one of my favorite pastimes is watching your show every day, turning on Fox News, putting it on mute, and watching their faces change. I think Dave's right. So.
All right, God bless you, bro. Good to hear from you. We're going to go to break and come back with Brad, Mark, and Richard in the next segment. Then we've got Mike Adams joining us. Then we'll have Luke Radowski pop in when he confronted Newty Gingrich. And we'll get his breakdown on this amazing video and audio, and then more of your calls. Stay with us. Here's some of the headlines at Infowars.com. Ron Paul has won. Young people engage with liberty. Limited government, sound money, anti-war principles. We're going to cover some of that with Mike Adams coming up. Also, nationwide poll. Ron Paul surges in to second. We've got more Ron Paul news. Ron Paul closes in on top 3 in South Carolina. The system is certainly in panic mode right now. Newspaper calls for the killing of Israelis in retaliation for nuke scientist assassination in Iran. Cashless society. India implements first biometric ID program on all of its 1.2 billion residents. 3 U.S. warships to patrol waters in the Strait of Hormuz. IDF chief of staff affirms Israeli responsibility for Iran covert war and assassinations. That's just some of the news. Right now, let's go to Brad in Oklahoma. Brad, thanks for holding.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I'm a new listener. Just started probably about 2 months ago listening to your show.
Welcome.
I'll tell you, it's opened my eyes. It's almost freaked me out a little bit that our government's this corrupt and this dangerous.
Listen, about 18 years ago when I really started waking up, I was freaked out all the time. When I realized, wow, the media is lying on purpose. Wow, they really are setting up a world government. Wow, they're anti-human. Wow, they really want to break up the family. Wow, they want my guns. Wow, they want my land. Wow, these are tyrants. Yeah, it is freaky.
It is. It's freaked me out, but I'm ready. I'm on your side. I believe everything you're saying. I believe this government's out of control, and we've got to do something about it.
Well, again, I don't want you to believe everything I'm saying. It's all right there, though. Just go look at it for yourself. I mean, I want people to even get more knowledge. Because a lot of times I'll just cover a gestalt of something because there's so much going on. Its reality is so much deeper than even what some talk show host can sit up here and, gibber about.
It's mind-boggling. It really is. It's just, and my deal is I've been trying to tell people about it, and I just don't think I'm informed enough to tell people about it. And they just don't want to listen. They just want to they just want to watch the football game or.
Well, look, if you're recently awake, Brad, and you don't feel like you're an orator yet, or you can put it all together, the best thing is, hey, have you seen this website? Or hey, tell me what you think of this film, and just make a copy of a DVD, or tell folks about this radio show, or other ideas, or say, what do you think of Ron Paul? Just an icebreaker, because a lot of people already feel so disempowered that they'll just kind of ignore you when you bring something up because they're thinking, what can I do? They don't understand what an opportunity it is to be awake and to then be a participant in the universe, actually standing for what's right and changing the course. They don't know the power they've got. The number one thing is, it isn't that people don't want to wake up. Most of them feel powerless, Brad, so they then just decide to make it all a big joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's what I've been running into. So I'm going to start taking your advice. I've been pushing Ron Paul. He's the candidate that can change this around. I can assure you that. And I just really appreciate your show, and I'm addicted to it now. I listen to it every day.
Well, God bless you, sir. I'm addicted to getting up here and exposing the control freaks as well. I mean, once you start getting into reality, it is addicting. And there's no rest. It's just, wow. They're slaves. And, just basically turned it into like big gangs. So there was also a gang form of slavery where everybody was basically, a house slave. And it really wasn't even slavery. It was more of like large gangs. But then people with barnyards. And then the doctors check the women when they're ready to be fertile. They put them in pens together, and then they send the males and females to different camps, and the babies are taken as if eggs from a hen and are totally programmed by the state owners who actually had huge posses of blacks that were basically like their family, and were all armed, and with actually some rebellions in Alabama that I read about. I'd heard about this, and I looked it up, where there were big plantation owners that began to earn any reading or writing. If they ever used too good in English, that was uppity, and they were beaten. Generally, there was different variants of the way slaves were kept. I've actually studied it. There was some areas where it was more like a mafia, and you had slave owners. And reportedly, a lot of these North Koreans can hardly talk now. And that's kind of what was done to black people in this country when they were slaves. He would keep the males out in pens. There's manuals on this, and you would never let them really learn